What's up, guys? Welcome to the Third and Goal Show, hosted by Gehrig Douglas, Nick Johnson, and new analyst, Tripolitan sports writer, Scott Sheldon.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And this is the show where we break down the week's college football games and tell us our picks. All right, first up, we got Penn State versus Pittsburgh, and Penn State's coming in at a 9.5 favorite.
All right. Well, personally, I see this game as a high potential trap game for Penn State. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. Penn State didn't look good week one, personally, in my opinion. They were in a tough game for most of the night against App State. They gave up a lot of passing yards late in the game, especially in the fourth quarter, to let App State take a late lead, and they barely fought their way back through in overtime to get the win. So Penn State didn't look impressive. Pitt had a decent win. They looked all right in their win, but it was only over Albany, so it wasn't a great team. But still, they looked decent enough to put up some competition towards Penn State. Scott, what are you thinking?
Well, the past 10 years, Pitt has been where dreams go to die, like Miami did last season. So Penn State's going to be in real trouble next week.
Right.
But I think with James Franklin, they'll be okay. Week one, every team struggles, but I trust James Franklin. He'll be okay. But I do think that Pitt will cover the spread, but Penn State will win a close game. I believe in Penn State.
I can agree with you on that, but I do think it's funny you did bring up that Pitt is a team that knocks off superior opponents often. I know a couple of years ago they had that Clemson game where they beat Clemson.
West Virginia 10 years ago on the national championship, met Miami last year.
Pitt is always one of the dragon
weird teams at
home. So that could be interesting. What I think is going to be the difference maker in this game is Trace Morsley. He's I think it's McSorley. Sorry, got that wrong. McSorley. In my opinion, he's the better quarterback tonight, Saturday night. He had a great game against App State, despite the fact that the team didn't play well. He was clutch. He came in when he needed to, and he helped lead the team to the win. When they needed to get some offense generated, he was able to get it going. So I see him being a big difference maker. I see him playing well with the experience that he has and the talent. I see him putting Pitt over, Penn State over in a 35-31 game.
I got one thing to say. I think a lot of people are overlooking the loss of Saquon Barkley. He's a generational talent.
Yeah.
And not just Barkley, but their offensive coordinator, Joe Moorhead.
Yeah.
Right.
They're going to miss him.
A big thing is Penn State. I think that's why the spread's so low, 9.5 points, too, because they're missing a lot of players they had last year that made them a top contender.
Exactly.
But me personally, I think I'm going to go with Penn State still to cover it and win.
To cover and win?
Cover and win.
Okay. Pitt covers, but Penn State wins.
Okay. All right.
That covers all that one. All right, next game, we got Clemson versus Texas A&M. Clemson's going in at a 12.5 point favorite. So that's pretty interesting. You can kick it over to Nick.
12.5 point favorite. Wow, that's kind of high in my opinion in College Station for anybody.
Especially with Jimbo Fisher. Now, Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher, I see that as a pretty good match. Now, this first year, I don't expect to see them at their full potential because Jimbo is going to need some time to get talent in and get his players that he wants on his team built up. But, however, nonetheless, I think Texas A&M already has enough talent to where they can compete with upper-level teams such as Clemson. As we said, this is in College Station, which is supposed to be one of the toughest environments to play in the country. We've seen plenty of SEC teams, big names, come in and do well most of their season and come in and struggle in College Station. Both teams actually played well in week one, if you were watching last week, but they both had fairly easy opponents and both showed out well with big wins, lots of offense, and they kept their opponents to relatively low scores as well. One thing to keep in mind in this game is the quarterback situation with Clemson.
Oh, for sure.
They're having a quarterback battle kind of similar to what Alabama was seeing. They've got a younger guy who's got some talent, and he has the potential to take over, and Clemson isn't sure who they're going to have starting. In my opinion, if you go into this game on the road and you don't have a quarterback set, you don't even know who's leading the team, and you don't figure out who you're going to play most of the game till the second or third quarter, I think a lot of damage could be done early without having to a straight leader to go to. So I think that could be a big factor in this game. I think that could give Texas A&M a big edge. What do you think about that, Scott?
It's funny you kept talking about Jimbo Fisher, but he just left Florida State where they lost to Clemson every year. Davo's winning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Davo is going to have an advantage already going to this game. He knows how Jimbo Fisher's teams work. But what I'm looking at, on the road, Clemson's defensive line has got to set the tone early, especially at a loud field like Kyle Field.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson's defensive line might be the single best unit of any position in the entire country, and they need to act like it. And we're talking about the quarterback situation. I think Kelly Bryant's going to be fine. Trevor Lawrence is 5-star recruit. I think he's going to be great. But I think for now, you got to go with Kelly Bryant. The guy who's got you this far. But yeah, I think Texas A&M has serious upset potential here. I like Clemson. I think they're very talented. But going into Kyle Field and winning is a big task to achieve.
Right. Yeah.
And we should also Clemson. This will be the third straight year that they've knocked off an SEC team if they win. Auburn the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have A&M. They beat South Carolina every year. So Clemson, Clemson's truly going to be a playoff contender, this is a stage. And if Texas A&M wins, then they'll start being whispers of them, possibly, making a playoff. Or even the SEC West is going to be amazing this year.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think personally, Clemson, he mentioned D-line.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to come in and probably do what they did to Auburn early last year and probably rack up around 11 sacks.
Yeah.
That was a brutal game. So, with a 12.5-point favorite in Clemson,
Right.
I'm not going to take Clemson with the point spread, but I'll take Clemson over Texas A&M.
Yeah. Like they've already said, it's hard not to take into account Clemson's defensive line. They're going to be the difference maker in this game. I see them being more physical, more athletic, and overall more competitive than the offensive line of Texas A&M. I see them getting overpowered most of the game. They're going to be causing trouble. It's going to be hard for Texas A&M to get an offense going with the line of scrimmage getting pushed back on every play. I've got Clemson winning at 31-21.
Clemson is not going to cover, but they're going to win. Clemson will win 35-31.
All right.
Up next, we got Oklahoma versus UCLA, a big one out west, and Oklahoma's going into it a 30-point favorite. That's pretty big.
Wow, yeah, that is big, but I think it's definitely deserving. Week 1, Oklahoma played not a slouch team in FAU. Lane Kiffin's got a good thing going down there. They're definitely competitive in their conference. They've got some great offense, but they couldn't get anything going last Saturday. I think the final score was 63 to either 7 or 14.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But and what I was impressed with was Oklahoma's defense, to be honest.
For sure.
A lot of people give the Big 12 a lot of flack for, not having defenses that can, play that well because, the Big 12 is such a high-scoring conference. Everybody assumes the Big 12 can't play defense. Oklahoma holding FAU to only 14. I know FAU's not a big-name team, but that's still an accomplishment in itself, and I think it's a sign that Oklahoma can play some defense. And then we've got a weak team in UCLA. I know it's Chip Kelly's first year, and people are excited about that, but I just don't see that being a big factor in this. They lost last week to Cincinnati at home. I don't see a lot of potential for UCLA to even have a chance to compete in this game. I think this one's going to be ugly.
Yeah, Oklahoma could have really benefited from this defense during the playoffs last year against Georgia. But
yeah,
I'm impressed with Lincoln Riley, especially taking over after Bob Stoops after almost 20 years. And now Lincoln Riley's making this into his own team. And even with a new quarterback in Kyler Murray, he's playing really well.
Right.
And now,
awesome
and last week, FAU is a very good Group of 5 team, and Oklahoma just stifled them the whole game.
Right.
So, especially with Oklahoma being at home, I think they're going to win pretty big. They'll win pretty handily. Oklahoma's a 30-point favorite. It's hard to go with a 30-point favorite, so I'm going to go with UCLA against the spread, but Oklahoma's still going to win very comfortably. It's going to be over about the third quarter.
I think the thing to watch is Chip Kelly's creativeness in this game. If he can get creative early with some, trick plays, something he's always done, I think he can throw them off at the beginning. But with that being said, I'm still taking Oklahoma.
It's funny, back in the day, like when Chip Kelly was at Oregon, what he was doing was considered creative then.
Yeah.
But now, it's like what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
So Chip has to come up with some even newer stuff now,
But,
even more innovative.
Yeah. He was the originator, though. So
He was.
I do like
He
the
was.
originator.
Long term, he'll probably do well at UCLA, but it's not happening. It's not happening this weekend, especially this weekend.
In a couple years, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, I think this could be a great game.
Especially UCLA had Will Spate as a quarterback, graduate transfer from Michigan. He's already hurt, so that's already a blow for UCLA.
He was trash at Michigan anyway. So.
Well, that's maybe you're not wrong.
Michigan quarterbacks aren't known for being great these days.
I'm taking Oklahoma, not covering spread.
For me, like I said, a couple years from now, I might would entertain the idea of an upset. Maybe, you know, I think Chip Kelly will get a good program going to UCLA, but at the current state, I just don't see this being a competitive game. I've got Oklahoma winning 51-17, beating the spread.
You know what's going to happen, right? We all picked Oklahoma, so now UCLA is going to win. We all pick Oklahoma.
Oh, this is going to be a crazy week.
All
There's
right,
a lot of
for
upset
sure.
potential
for
this
sure.
week.
Up
Definitely.
next, in our game of the week, we have Stanford versus USC. Stanford's coming in a 5-point favorite, the lowest of all these teams we've covered today. So we expect a close one, guys. Just throw it over to Nick.
Yeah, definitely. This is going to be one of the big games determining, you know, who the power of the Pac-12 is this year.
Important going forward.
Yeah, this will definitely be important, and definitely an important game, and it's happening very early in the season. This is always a good game, and I expect it to be a good game this week, especially. Looking back to week 1, I saw that USC actually, you wouldn't tell it from the score, but for the first 3 quarters of the game, USC was struggling against a UNLV team. They were behind for a little while. They couldn't get ahead, and their offense really didn't go in full throttle until that 4th quarter. So I think USC, perhaps their offense needed, you know, some time to settle in and get laid back and get playing in the game. But if they're not ready to play against Stanford, then it's going to be a big difference. They're going to get behind too far, and it's going to make a big difference. Stanford, however, wasn't exceptional in week 1 either. Now, they did control the pace of the game better than USC did, I feel. But they only finished up winning like 31-10, I think, in their game, and which is a pretty decent score. But they also got a lot of their points later in the game as well. The biggest difference in this game I see is Stanford's defense. I think Stanford will have a much better defense than USC. And I see both offenses maybe operating at a similar level, but I think Stanford's got the big difference on defense, and I think that's going to be the difference maker in this game.
Yeah, I like Stanford in this game because one thing counted from Stanford, their coach, David Shaw, always has disciplined teams, always ready to go. See, Stanford, everyone's smart there. You're going to count on, you know, guys. Stanford's not going to beat themselves. So, especially with Bryce Love, probably maybe the best running back in the country, and my X factor in this game is going to be KJ Costello, the quarterback. You know, last year that was one game where Bryce Love was hurt against Oregon State, and that's not a good program. And Stanford almost lost that game because they didn't have Bryce Love. So I'm looking for Stanford. USC has a freshman quarterback coming in after the GOAT Sam Darnold, and now he has to go on the road to the farm in Stanford. Stanford's a 5-point favorite. I like Stanford against the spread, but I still think it's going to be fairly close. But Stanford pulls away in the end.
Yeah, I'm going to go with USC in this one. It's at Stanford, I know that. But I think this is an important game for USC to kind of get it going in the Pac-12. Washington has got a loss against Auburn. So they can go ahead, if they can beat Stanford out the gates, they can kind of take control of the Pac-12. So I'm going to take USC to cover and win.
It's still early in the season, but this arguably could be a playoff eliminator game. Kind of like Auburn and Washington last week. People are saying that was a playoff eliminator game. I think this could be an eliminator game.
Definitely, especially for the Pac-12 representative.
Exactly.
I think whoever loses this game is not going to win the Pac-12.
And with the Pac-12 South as wide open as it is, you have Arizona State, USC, Utah, all legit contenders.
Definitely. Anybody could win that division. It's a competitive division. In this game, we've got Stanford at home against USC, who struggled last week. You know, they've got young players, they've got a young offense. Stanford's defense looked pretty good last week, in my opinion. I think Stanford's defense gets it done. They beat the spread with a 38-28 win. And I believe that will conclude our show for this week. So I'm gonna let you take us out, Gary.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks to special guest Scott Shelton.
Good to be here.
Leave a comment if he should come back on the show.
Mhm.
It has been Gehrig Douglas,
Nick Johnson.
And Scott Shelton.
and thank you for watching the Third and Goal Show. See you in the red zone.